And so there comes a day like any other, wherein somebody is going to come join us on the live. That was like the Hisoka voice. Snap. There we are. There's the setup. I have to animate things today, so this is not going to be like a talkie talk live. But we shall see what happens. Because animation is monotony. It's legit just monotony. Like the rough animation part, that's where things are fun, and then you get to try stuff, and there's experimentation, and after that you're just filling in lines for freaking 4 weeks straight. Which is not as pleasant as it should be, but it's a necessary part of the process. Factions, greetings. Welcome to the live. Hit the button. There's the button. There's sound on this thing? Let's make sure. Yeah, we got sound. All right. Today is going to be a good day. I can feel it. Oh, what's good?
Hey, how's it going?
I'm quite well. How are you?
Excellent. I'm doing well. So, yep, just blessed for sure. Let's flip this around real quick so you can actually see me and not my room. Yeah, I don't know why it's there we go. I was like, dang, it's not reversing. There we go.
There we go.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, so things are going well. Just run the campaign and continue to getting the word out. So yes, it's been a blessing to work on the product so far for sure.
It's really dope to see the project and how well it's come along and all of the things involved with it. It makes me happy to know that it exists. And I hope this helps some more people know it exists as well.
Yes. Well, thank you very much. So yeah, because we greatly appreciate any word we can get out just so people can understand like the mission and really the idea behind this and why we believe this needs to exist and beyond the world. So, absolutely. So thank you for having me on.
Of course, bro. I guess, I don't know. How intense do you want this conversation to be? You want a basic conversation or do you want these bars?
So I'll let you lead the flow of it as much as you'd like. So that's perfectly fine.
Okay. Let us start off easy. Who are you and why should the people care?
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Jason, and I'm actually doing this project with my best friend Peter, and then some of my former students who are part of it. And then we have some other artists too that are from across the world. So from Africa, South America, some from Spain. Really, the idea is that to have this collection of artists and designers to really have their voice heard in regards to why representation is important, and really combine this with a really cool combat game. So the idea is because that voice is missing so much in tabletop gaming, really our goal is to be a presence to help represent that voice so people understand why it's important that you have that level of representation in the designers and the art staff, but then also in the artwork itself.
Oh, that's very good, and it's dope that you have a team of artists from all over the place because that means their influences come from all over the place.
Yes,
as well.
absolutely. And I think that's the neat thing too is like, say for example, so the Piranha faction, which is it's influenced by West African culture. So we have a West African artist who works on that faction, and also one of my former students who's she actually lives in the Midwest with me, but she's Black and she's super into really the Pan-African movement, and so you can feel that and you can see that in the artwork, and that to me is important because then their voice is being heard through the artwork itself.
Absolutely, the connection a lot of us are finding with West African culture, having the tract of Afrocentricity over the past 100 years. The thought has evolved, and I think as the world has become more globalized, and kind of creating a hodgepodge of cultures, and then creating an Afrocentric culture based off of that hodgepodge, people are going back into Europe and different specific cultures and places we're doing, and then replicating those things by the things that actually exist. You said you had a student. What do you teach, or what did you teach?
Yeah, so I'm actually an art and design teacher. So we have like a staff of probably about 16 or so, but 7 of those, so close to half of the staff is actually made up of my former students. So they play a part in the design, and also they illustrate some of the factions as well. So 3 of the factions are illustrated by my former students, and to me that part was important because then it was important to have like these young artists be a part of it. And again, the idea of building this world and making it unique and different and having their voice in it to me is super important because then it really fits the mission in the idea behind why we're doing the game.
Absolutely.
So absolutely.
Nah, it's freaking dope. Why do you think right now is the time to drop the game on these people?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've been actually working on it for 3 years, and it's only been 24 years in the making. So we actually started the idea of it like in grade school, and so we started making like a not as good version. But really, we feel like now it's really important to really get this word out about it, because I feel like now it's more present, like just in culturally, just in the conscience of people's minds in regards to why representation is important and why it's important to, again, for people to have their voice heard and be able to control what media looks like. And so the people don't realize what that does to you psychologically, what it does to you emotionally, what it does just in the pride you have within yourself to see yourself in those things. And because I feel like now people are starting to understand that just a little bit more, this is the perfect time to drop it. The crazy thing is we were planning to drop it in the fall anyways, but now it's just even a better time to do so.
There are no accidents. So why is turtle?
Yes. 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 Absolutely. There aren't. And so like we believe like just that, like just it was just like it just came together. This was the perfect timing to really get this word out in regards to people can understand again why this product deserves to be made. Because like for me, like we could just make a fantasy game, but to me that doesn't matter. Like it's not just the idea of just make something to make money. It's the idea of serving an audience and really creating something that has a purpose. So not just a product, but a purpose. And those are two different things. So then really then having the product serve that purpose is really the whole goal of it for sure.
Exactly. And it ends up becoming fruitful, and it ends up spawning, as you've seen, it ends up spawning things that also lend to that creativity and cause other great into the world. There seems to be a resurgence in tabletop games and independent games. What do you, as someone that's familiar with that culture and has been around for a little bit, where do you think that resurgence is coming from?
Yeah, I would say like so a resurgence of it too as well, just being the fact that people love coming, because really gaming and tabletop gaming is about community. And of course, obviously there's the big, the gaming industry itself. So like video games and things like that. So then there was kind of just a callback to the idea of like face-to-face community and building relationships in that way. And so I feel like there was a need and a desire for that. And not to mention, not only was there a need and desire for it, you started seeing like these very gifted artists and designers who were a part of this industry and community who made the quality so much better. And once that quality was able to, rise, and the demand for it rose too as well, because you had very high quality games being produced.
Absolutely. There's so many games that I bought just because of the art attached to it. Like, there was this magazine called Game Informer like a long time ago.
Yes.
And there was this it was a game about like mushrooms. I forget the name of it, but it was about mushrooms, and the mushrooms looked like samurai. So I saw the art in GameStop and I bought it.
For sure.
But the art was so tight that I could draw the characters in it and build characters off of those designs that they had.
Absolutely. And that's the cool thing too. Like you're saying, like, so you specifically bought games because the artwork drew you in, and that part's so important. And I feel like that's like a huge difference between when I was growing up and playing games. Like just art is just a big focus of it, and it's what's gonna draw you in, and then you can see why the game itself is so awesome. And that's what we really want to do. So we wanted to create this game that's like different than typical tabletop games in regards to the artwork, but also the gameplay, and then people can be brought in through the artwork and then see why the gameplay is so cool. So absolutely.
What makes the gameplay so special?
Yeah, absolutely. So typically in tabletop games, and especially like because obviously there's a big resurgence like in D&D and stuff like that. There's a lot of like dice rolling and a lot of like luck and almost like a random element. So we really wanted to go away from that. So you have to build the board, and so that determines how things are set up in the beginning. You have to lay the tiles to build it. Also, there's no deck. So like Peter and myself used to grow up playing games that had decks, but there is no deck. So the faction you choose, you can choose any cards you want to play right away, but there's also a risk because the cost of the cards. Let's say you start with 10 goats. Let's say you play like a big card that costs 8. Well, if that card gets eliminated, then your opponent gets 8 points. So there's a risk and reward to if you play a big unit right away, or if you want to save it for a certain time and opportunity. And that's the thing that makes it really unique. It's all about your choices, even in the risk that comes to the choices, and not like the random elements for sure.
So you're encouraging people to you're kind of tricking people into using strategy.
Yeah, yes, absolutely. So, because you can't really win this game at all without strategy. That's what makes it so fun too. Just all the choices and things that come along with it.
Dang. Having been taught game design and having an understanding of game design, how
Yes.
much of it is like do you get taught psychology of like how to influence people subtly? Like how does
Yeah.
it come?
Absolutely. So like, so for me too, because I'm a teacher, and part of like my background for my grad school program was psychology, which is kind of funny. But yeah, so just the idea of really kind of finding a game that could also give people like agency meaning they're able to kind of make choices and feel good about those choices, so they actually want to play it. And so really in the mechanics, really creating things that would give them that kind of feel of it. So just kind of like a pride in what they're doing, but then also just again, just like should I do this? So like, yep, that kind of play essentially, for sure, for sure.
That's freaking crazy.
Oh, thank you.
Snap. What was the feeling like when you first like play tested the game, or when you first saw people playing the game,
Yeah.
and the setups worked and everything kind of worked together and gelled?
Yeah, and I would say probably some of the first experiences, because we weren't able to play with a lot of people, of course, during COVID, but like, you know, the years leading up to this, you know, we did a lot of playtesting. We'd go to a couple of playtesting conventions, at least like 2 to 3 every single year. And so I think really just the idea of, hey, we made this thing that we started in grade school, and now we have this more polished version. The idea of people actually playing it, like it's just the experience for us was like humbling, but also the idea we had to be willing to learn, because there's plenty of things that were fixed from then. So like 3 years ago up until now. So really being able to kind of listen to that feedback in regards to things are a little bit too heavy. Like there was almost like too much strategy and too many choices and things in the beginning. So we actually had to scale back, because good design, and that's part of my background, good design understands people. It knows that good design is simple, so people can kind of grasp it and get it, you know, through a playthrough, for sure. So absolutely.
I see. It seems like there's so much under the surface of game design,
Yes.
building out an entire game. So I guess
Yes.
it being a longer process kind of helped in a way. And now everything kind of worked out where the timing is perfect and you're able to do all these things.
Yes, absolutely. And that's the blessing is like we're able to kind of still like plug away. Like obviously there were some setbacks with COVID, but we were blessed to be, you know, fairly, you know, healthy during this time, and also and just kind of dealing with just working around the idea of not being able to play with people physically and go to conventions. So really just kind of leaning on social media and building those relationships. So that was really our major thing that we can kind of work through during the last several months, for sure.
It's been fun to watch. Your social media is one of the more interesting from people that have games. Where did you build?
Yes.
How did you build that strategy that you're taking in media and your application of art in your marketing process?
Yeah, absolutely. So really our goal was to try to build, like, in regards to how we approach social media, was to build it and really focus on the idea of community, because people really forget about the social part of social media. Like they just put out media. And so for us, it was really to get people involved in like the lore of the game, but also kind of really get them involved in the reasoning behind the game and why they should be a part of this community and why this matters to our community. And then also then allowing for them to get feedback in regards. So we would do polls. They would give us feedback in regards to design changes. We're actually planning, if we're able to hit our stretch goal, we actually want to have people help build a faction, and which will be huge. And so really control the idea of the visuals of it, and that's something we've never done before. And so helping people understand, like, this is your game. But we made this game for you because we felt that representation matters. Then you be a part of that representation and how that's implemented. And yeah, because we have 8 factions, but that would be the 9th. So if we're able to hit our major stretch goal, that's the plan. Yep. So they would give us this feedback, and our artists will work off of it, for sure.
That's freaking dope. Educating the community is always the best move, and having a local community that responds to you, that you can interact with, is brilliant. It's freaking brilliant.
Absolutely. Well, thank you. So I do appreciate that.
Oh,
I definitely do appreciate that.
Nah, bro, it's freaking amazing watching what you're doing, getting the response that it's getting.
Yes.
Snap. All right. Now for the origin story. How the heck did you A, find art, or B, find and take an interest in gaming?
Yeah, absolutely. So I grew up like when my best friend Peter and I, we actually met in first grade. And so we were both like into like fantasy and things like that. We'd play games like Magic the Gathering. So then we actually made, again, the original factions just on sheets of paper. So it's still like in this Goosebumps folder that I have like from grade school. So that's actually where it all started. So we were super interested in being creative and telling stories. So we made that in grade school. And of course, that helped give us like a guide or plan for what we're doing right now. But that's where it really all started. And for me, I love to draw and do a lot of storytelling and world building. So then really the idea of that behind the game is really where this all came from for sure. So really, again, starting in 5th grade is where the original Factions was created.
Dang. Wow. Good God.
Thanks.
You were playing free Magic in 1st grade?
Oh, no. We met in 1st grade. We were playing in 5th grade. So that's the key. And we were bad at it. We were terrible. But it helped kind of give us like, the ability to be able to do this now. And that's the key, like a building block.
Oh,
so absolutely.
That's really cool. And so you've been chasing game design your entire life?
Yes, essentially. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So this is something we've been building towards our entire lives. And it's really cool to now execute it now that we have like the time and really the structures and the team to do it, to build it with.
Wow.
Yeah.
We're in an age right now where it's kind of cool to be a nerd and
yes,
become prosperous, because the nerds before, I guess people are using their intellect wisely, and so now people have grown and used their intellect and their ability wisely, and now they're creating things they wish they would have had when they were younger. Do you think we're in a bubble right now, or do you think we're in a renaissance in regards to nerd content, specifically nerd content of color?
Yeah, I would say Renaissance. And so the cool thing too about over the course of actually working on Factions, like I didn't realize just how prominent blurred culture was, because I when I was growing up too, I was like, I feel like I'm the only like black nerd that like around is what it felt like in my school and stuff too. And so I'm like, I'm the only one like and I don't know if I'm sure not everyone felt this way, but I'm like, I'm the only one reading like comics and like really get into like fantasy and stuff like that. And so now it's like, it's such a big prominent thing. And I think it's so dope to have, like blurred conventions and blurred culture, and to have, again, to be a part of that culture and to help other people understand how dope it is by producing artwork that I feel like really fits that culture. Like, I think we are in a renaissance where it's not just a temporary thing. This is a thing that's going to keep going, and it has like a lot of legs, a lot of strength. And people see why it's important to have artists and designers of color too. So
I'm glad for it. Have you been to did you get a chance to go to any conventions where everything got shut down?
No, that's what sucked. We were actually going to go to a blurred convention in Virginia and also a smaller one in New York. And so and that's what sucked. We were actually planning on taking like a tour of the East Coast. And so to go to and there was actually like a black owned comic shop in Philadelphia that we were planning to go to too as well. But of course, that's all gone. Like, they're still open and stuff, but we weren't able to do any of that stuff due to COVID, which sucked for us. And so it was going to be so cool to really make those connections in person. And that's what I'm talking about. People don't realize how prominent this culture is. And so to really open the eyes of people, this is so dope. And to have these voices be a part of it, we are in a renaissance for sure.
Yeah, bro. I moved to Philly a year before Amalgam opened. And so when I walked into the doors, I legit cried.
Right?
Because
it's crazy.
One would need. It's the exact same feeling I felt when Spider-Verse came out. And
yes.
Perfect. And nothing was wrong with it. And I stepped out the theater. That validation is huge. And despite my inclination to want to say that, I don't care about diversity, I'll just go make stuff. I don't need
for sure
to make stuff for me. It actually is incredibly validating for things like this to exist.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I mean, because I still go into Spider-Verse is by far one of my favorite or animated films, or maybe just films in general. But that, you go back to the power that had. Even just the opening scene where you see Miles in his chair in his bedroom, you're like, this is different. You just knew, you could feel it, that it was different visually, and also just again, the cultural elements that were incorporated into that. And also, and clearly, of course, we know Black Panther, what that did and what it showed, the power that these cultural elements can have. And so, I feel like people understand that now and they see that now. And I think we're in such a good era where it's a powerful time for it. It's needed too. Absolutely.
Indeed. Back on the concept of faction.
Mm-hmm.
Which faction is your favorite?
Yeah, the crazy thing is this actually it changes over time. It depends what I'm really into at the time. But I would say, so there are two of them that are let's say almost tied for three. So Primus is one that's it's based upon South American and Mexican lore, and so I really like just the feel the warriors, there's a female fighting force in that faction. I really just how they look and how they're presented. And then Parada, which is this West African faction, which really has a lot of traditional things like centaurs, elves, and things like that. But then it's with this West African feel, and it's just so different than what anything you'd see before. Because my former student Bree, who's worked on it, we were doing all this research building up to it, and I was like, hey Bree, just look up like black elf. And of course, first of all, we could barely find any. But I was like, did you see any with the African mask? And she's like, no. It's like, well, then we do that. So then let's do something that has not been done before, and let's do it in a powerful and strong way. And so that's why that's one of my favorite ones. And then Moon Shadow, which is one of my other favorite ones, where it's like it's based upon North African and then Native American culture, and it's a race that we made specifically for the game. So that, and then too, they have like touches of being assassins and also like scientists, and they also have like this vampiric nature where they take blood and they use it to help them with their abilities and things like that. So just this really unique faction, and to be able to make it from scratch, I would say that those are my top three, absolutely.
Yeah, Africa's free real estate. In your period of studying,
yes,
have you found any lore from history that's intrigued you tremendously?
Yeah, that's the crazy thing. So this is one thing we actually get like a lot of compliments on it, is just like some of the ones that people aren't familiar with. So we have this one creature in one of our factions called the Asambosum, and it's actually a vampire from African folklore. And so the crazy thing is a lot of people don't know about it, but it's so dope. The design of it's so dope because it's like this pharaoh-looking vampire. And not only that, but the design we have for it almost looks like a baboon. So it's like this really like ape-looking thing, and it's just like really eerie and creepy looking. So that's by far one of my favorite ones that we have in our lore. And then Kodal, which is from South America, and it looks kind of like a dragon, but it's almost like this flying serpent. And that's the really cool thing, is that these really cultural elements that come from folklore and mythology that people don't know, because most people know, like, yeah, I know like elves and centaurs and dragons, but then incorporate things like a Yakumama, which is this really awesome serpent from South America. And so these things that people don't see, like, that's my favorite part of it for sure.
Yeah, there's so much to freaking, and throughout history, the craziest thing is when you look into a lot of African civilizations and Aboriginal civilizations,
yes,
in different parts of the world, their mythology and their history are intertwined.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a shade of that in the factions lore?
So actually, can you ask that question one more time, please, just so I can answer it correctly?
Yeah, when you look at a lot of Aboriginal and African stories, because it's generally in oral tradition, their mythology, like their monsters, but their history is often intertwined. So, like in the history of these Aboriginal people in Canada, they have a story about how all of the tribes came from one tribe, and then there was a flood, so then all of them attached their boats to each other. And when they attached their boats to each other, a bunch of languages were formed because everybody was talking to each other. And so they have that as a part of their history, even though it's like a legend. How do you approach legend the better question for you, how do you approach legends when you're world building, when you're thinking about the story of factions?
Yeah, so in regards to how we approach legends, because our goal of it was to be able to have these influences from culture and mythology, but not copy them directly, I guess is how I would phrase it. Because we wanted to make sure that when we build like the lore, it's something that does feel like original and new. So then our goal was to really find like things that we felt like could implement the world that we already established. So the world that the game takes place in, it's like this really like warm climate. So it fits the idea of like African cultures and South American, and we have a little bit of Native American too as well. And then there's the one that we'll add eventually. But then really finding the best elements to pull from those cultures that can influence what we're doing. So for example, like in the Parada faction, which is based upon West African, there's a lot of influence from Ghana. So all of the Adinkra symbols, like each of those races has their own Adinkra symbol. And then so whatever the meaning of that Adinkra symbol is, it's supposed to fit the culture and the ideology of that specific clan. So like for the elves, the centaurs, the Eloko, which are from African folklore, and so those little those dwarves, like then each symbol represents how they like interact and what they do, and so that was how we try to implement those things too as well.
Very good. And what is your stretch goal?
Yeah, so we have two stretch goals. So like, well we just hit our first one. So the idea is if we hit 13K, then each faction would get 3 additional units. So if you have the base game, you get 18. If you have the expansion, you get 24. So you have a lot more to choose from. And then we're actually incorporating like more cultural things in those units. So then the next one is if we hit like our small stretch goal, we're going to release a print in place. People can test out the game, try to get it up on Tabletop Simulator, and then also offer our community to help us build the box artwork and incorporate the cultures and things of that. And then the big one is that we can hit the big stretch goal, then that's where people are going to be building a faction. So they're going to have a lot of influence on what these things look like. And that's what actually we're super excited about. So there's going to be 2 parts to it. The first part is that we're going to actually incorporate some of our bad grade school drawings, and then people will kind of rebuild those and give us like, hey, like, what do you want to incorporate into this thing? And then also then the cultural element, so people giving us feedback in regards to how they want to build that for that last faction. So that's what we're super excited about. So that'll be our 20K goal. If we can hit 20K, then we're going to let our community build that 9th faction, and then Lord willing, we can actually include it, in the original Kickstarter. So that's what we're working towards. So thank you. And I would say to your community, so the people who are watching, we'd love your support to kind of bring that community-based part to life. Like, we really want to focus on the idea of, again, incorporating cultures you don't see. So the ones that come from South America, Mexico, and then for us specifically, West Africa, South Africa, and just a little bit of North Africa, and then Native American culture. So we want to have more of this. We want people to see more of this. And the way for us to do that is to hit those stretch goals so you can help us build that last faction. So yeah, so if you were to go to Kickstarter and look up factions.com, or if you go to the link in our profile and just click on that, and go to Kickstarter, we would love your support, because it's really only through you that we can build this thing. Absolutely.
That's freaking huge, bro, to the people in here. Chelsea
Yes.
said it this way for the D&D. It's like Magic the Gathering, but better, and with black people.
Yes.
People and free elves, and so many different amazing cultural influence. Also, I feel like the strategy is better because there's less luck involved. So you actively have to be good at the matter of fact, here's a question. How long does it take for you to get good at the game? If you want the game.
The funny thing is, because I definitely did like most of like the design work of all the visuals and so how to make this intuitive, and then my best friend Peter is the one who actually designed the mechanics and stuff, and so like I would say it took us about a year to actually have something polished enough we can play it accurately. And I would say from then we were able to both, because I feel like we beat each other constantly, so we're both, I would say, like equal in that regard. But the cool thing is, like, I'll play it with someone who's fairly new to it and they'll beat me. And really, the key too, and that's what I think is unique about it, because even if you feel like you're behind, because of that risk reward system, even if I have like a big unit out on the board and you kill it, and you get 8 points, or you might get 10 points. So typically you play up to 25. So if you get 8 points, you're like right back in the game like that. And that's why even someone who's newer to the game can definitely beat me, and I know how to play it, really well. And I think that's the unique thing about it, because then it feels like you're not like getting blown out by a good creature. And I think that's the key.
I see. You figured out how not to make the game broken.
Yes. That's the whole part of it. That's the whole part of it.
Dang. That's freaking dope, dude.
Thank you.
Yeah. I don't generally find myself out of it. Matter of fact, people in the live, I'm gonna need you to bombard questions. This is a filler question that I just ask people when they're unfortunately very good at answering questions.
Yes.
How dare you be such an easy interview?
For sure.
All right. Snap. 5 years down the line, what are your plans for Factions? What do you want to see with Factions?
Absolutely. So 5 years down the line, we would have liked to have already had like an expansion out of the game. And then the 2 other elements we'd like to actually implement is we'd like to actually have it developed as a mobile app. And then the second or the third part is we really want to have storylines developed. So we already have, the lore and things like that in place and the world building. So we really, really want to have, again, people of color behind the lens and behind the pages of telling this story, because that's why this exists. And so that's really what we really want to focus on within those first 5 years. And if we can really get that world going and people telling stories, then we believe we're in a good place, because then it's serving the audience that it needs to serve, for sure. Because who tells the stories and who is behind the lens does matter.
Very true.
Yes. Oh, and I see a question. What's my biggest influence for the game? I would say the biggest influence, for sure, of course, like so the obvious part is just the cultures that are represented in the game. But in regards to like the gameplay itself, like Peter and I, we grew up playing Magic the Gathering, which we love because we're both nerds, we're both geeky. But I would say like just the idea of having the fancy elements of that really influenced us. But then we wanted to go to really kind of go against some of like the weaker parts of Magic the Gathering, which I would say, in my opinion, is just the idea of the random elements, and also kind of being like they call it like where you're screwed by card drawing. So like, oh, well, let's not include that in our game. So let's do something that's different. And that was really our major influence. So just the D&D stuff we grew up with, Magic the Gathering, and then the cultural elements for sure, which we wanted to see in it.
Wow.
Oh yeah, and so if there's one that says, in the future, would you want to have DLC similar like content? For us, what we don't want to do is force people to pay like a lot of like microtransactions, things like that, because we feel like it doesn't serve our audience. So what we do want to do is kind of like how for this Kickstarter, you purchase one thing and you get it all. That's what we want to do too as well. So if we do an expansion, we want that expansion to include like new units for all of Factions. So if you purchase one, you get all of it. And then we even want to include like tiles that will allow for people to combine factions. And that just opens up everything to be able to have more strategy and more choices, which is what the game's about. It's about choices and giving our players agency for sure. All right, so when did you want to create this product and what's the goal? So we wanted to create, really it was about 3 years ago where we really got serious about it. That's the key. And so like, because anyone can say, yeah, let's do this thing, but Peter was really into it. Like, hey, Jason, we got to really bring this thing to life because there's a need for it. So 3 years is when it became serious and we started working towards it. And then the goal of it is, again, to create like a really fun strategy game that goes against the grain a little bit of the randomness and luck of traditional games, but then also to really show people why representation is important behind the staff and the artwork. And then that goal for us is to really hit our stretch goal for our Kickstarter. So if we can hit the medium one and the 20K one, so people can actually build the factions, that's what we really want to do. So to give people the experience of building this with us and bringing this thing to life. So really bringing our theme is strength and culture. So bringing strength and culture into gaming. All right. So how difficult is it to build the lore of the world? I would say actually the lore part isn't overly difficult. I would say maybe the difficult part was actually kind of balancing the factions and actually building like the gameplay of it. But I would say probably the lore part is by far the most fun part of it. And so for us, like, say, for example, we do have some ideas in regards to the new faction. If the community is able to help build that with us, like the idea of having almost like some kind of like Frankenstein style things implemented in that too, or this one faction creates some things and those things kind of rebel. So in regards to some storytelling elements, but of course, the goal is to get us there. So absolutely. All right. So what physical cons open back up? Would your team be there? So we if things open up, and then with perhaps exclusive content or the same as the DLC question. So if cons do open up in the summer. So again, like I was saying, we'd love to take that West Coast tour and really go to some of those bird cons that we wanted to go to originally. If that happens, we'd actually like to really bring along the 8 faction version, so people can really experience what those 2 bonus expansion factions look like, and then also kind of expose people to the concept art book. So it would be what was offered almost for the Kickstarter itself.
I love how they asking so many.
Yeah, I know. They're killing it, dude. So would you be interested in the community cosplay? Oh my gosh, yes. We've had one person ask about the idea of cosplaying like one of the newer factions, and dude, that floored me. Like, that's super humbling. The idea of like, hey, we made this thing, like started making it like 3 years ago, and it's kind of a play on what we did in grade school. If someone cosplayed that, we'd share the hell out of that. We're like, that would just blow our minds. Like, I can't even tell you. All right, so upon gaining success for the game, would you be expanding the world through books, comics, and so on? Absolutely. So one of the questions I was asked earlier, so within the next 5 years, where would you want to see yourself? If we can have like comics produced, so again, storytelling elements that expose people to the lore of the world, we are all for that. And so again, the idea of being able to have, really for us, like female storytellers and also storytellers of color really be a part of that, then that would be the major focus of it. So because we really want to incorporate themes that would impact people of color, because that's something you don't see as much in fantasy, and that's really one of the driving forces behind it too.
I would agree. The Witcher touched on that amazingly, and now that I'm going back and looking at more fantasy, I'm seeing all the allegories to reality and history that have appeared, be it with orcs or elves, or like the relationship between different kingdoms that previously I never really I was so young.
Yes, for sure. So yeah, could there be like contests with the community, people going against each other for some kind of prize? We were saying that we'd like to eventually hold some type of tournament eventually in the future. So of course, right now, just with COVID raging, that's something we can't necessarily do. But it would be cool to do some type of community-based thing where someone does like a contest to design a character for the game too. That we would be super on board with. So as we continue to like flesh things out, like that would be dope. Absolutely. Oh, I saw your face on that one, but yeah, that would be cool for us.
You caught me in a. You ever watch That's So Raven?
Yes, I did.
If I get like a fire idea for art, I'll just see it and I'll get lost in all the possibilities for it.
Yes.
And I'll like escape reality for a little bit.
Yeah. But I'm telling you, because I feel like we have such a vocal and good and awesome community. I think if we did this thing of like, hey, we want you guys to design a character for the game in the world, I think people would be actually involved in it and they'd be really on board for doing something like that. So if we can get to that point, yeah, that would be dope. Absolutely.
I would agree. Snap.
Would you have an online version of the game? That's really, again, if this Kickstarter is successful and we feel like there is a desire for this, we really would like to have a mobile version of the game produced, because then we feel like we'd be able to reach more people, especially for people who aren't really, don't really have people to really play with at the tabletop. And so then to be able to have an online community and not just, a face-to-face community that plays the game, that would be incredible for us. Absolutely.
Indeed. I'm trying not to hit any ones that we've already hit. When give us an idea what it's like building mechanics. He said, well, actually, I'll just put it up and let him say it.
Yeah. So could you give us an idea of what it's like building the mechanics? So I can kind of give you a little bit of insight, because my best friend Peter, who's also part of the product, he was really that was his thing. So that's his deal. So really, I think really the key is because the game's asymmetric, meaning like different factions do their own thing. So really the idea of balancing out those mechanics and making sure that each faction has their own strengths, but then their own weaknesses. So let's say one faction is really good at moving through the air and working together as a unit, but their health is really, really weak. And they also typically move before other factions because they have this thing called rank, and rank is when the units move. But one faction's super aggressive and they don't work well together. They kind of do their own thing, but they move later and they have more health. So kind of finding the balance in each faction's strategy. And I think that was really the key, because in the beginning, when Peter and I were working on this, initially, again, the factions could do too much, and that's overwhelming. So then we're like, let's have them all do their own super individual thing that fits not only their strategy, but then the culture of the faction and their environment. And that was really the neat thing, is how can we make their strategy fit their environment and the culture? And I think that was the really fun and cool part about it.
That's freaking amazing. And the fact that it's actually been done, because a lot of freaking empty promises, like a whole bunch of promises. Even people ask me, so when are you freaking making a project? And I don't tell them, because I know I'm not ready yet. Time in. This is the fruit of freaking time and practice and making sure everything is dialed in, so that you have something so that you can have something you feel comfortable giving to the people that you're confident in. That's freaking
absolutely.
Huh?
So and that's the cool thing. So also, that's why it's so cool, talking to it on the creative, because I feel like you get that, and so just the creative process and the idea of bringing something to life and really having people really engage with it and feel it, it's just such a dope experience for sure.
Yeah, I'd imagine it's so validating as a creative too, to put all this time and effort and energy and processing into something, and for it to actually bear fruit, and for a community to come around this thing that was in the brain of you and your friends since you were freaking little.
Yes, and that's the thing too. And so because it validates what we're doing, but then how Peter and I really think about this is like we want people to really see this and value this, but that's not their job. Like it's our job to get the word out in regards to what makes it special and why people should so support it. So like we're working our butts off behind the scenes to try to really get it out there, and then when the community does connect with it, that's super rewarding for us. So it's amazing, absolutely. Can you give us an idea of what it's like, Bill? Oh, never mind. That's the one I already answered.
Oh, okay. Let's see if there's another one.
Oh, for sure.
Here's one. There's like 3 more.
Could there potentially be models or figures in the future? So that's what's pretty interesting. So like we actually, so we're gonna have this artist named Mavis Ruiz actually design the actual the cover of the game, so the actual game box. And so we actually want to have a couple of potential characters actually incorporate into the design so people get a taste of what's going to be coming in the future. So one of the characters, so one of the elves, so the African faction called Parada, like he's actually going to be designed off of a football player that's from our home state. And so really like, yeah, let's kind of pick a couple people that we know and kind of incorporate the designs off of them. And then you never know, we eventually, the more this gets fleshed out, then the more we can really build off of potential like figures and models. So one of the things that's happening too as well is we're actually going to release this soon. So there's actually this piece that we created that's some of the African elves. It's a drawing of like 3 very prominent African actors, so of African descent, because some of them, one's American and then 2 of them are British. So John Boyega is one of them. And so like, hey, let's create this image that like, what would be our dream to have these 3 actors like play characters from our world. So like just stuff like that.
Manifestation, bro. It's bringing something into existence. And
yes,
as an artist, when did you find out that manifestation was real?
I would say when this started becoming real is when we had people like really engaging with it and saying, hey, like I enjoy actually seeing this, like I enjoy seeing these images actually come to life. So like we've had a couple people who, when they've seen some of like the Koto and the Yakumama and things like that, when they see that, like so from South American and Mexican lore, and they say, hey, I grew up with this in my childhood and I don't really see this in fantasy, that's when it became super real for us. Like, yeah, this matters and we need to really go through with this and do this. So I would say that those moments, which probably maybe started happening about like a year and a half ago.
That's dope.
Yeah, so is there an age restriction on the game? So definitely children can play it. Like on the actual box, it does say 14 and up because we want to try to make sure that there's no components that like choking hazard type of stuff for like little kids. But definitely younger kids can play it too as well. So if you're under the age of 14, you can definitely play it. And there's nothing that's like overly graphic in the artwork at all or anything like that too. So kids, middle school students can definitely play the game for sure.
Wow. I'm impressed.
Yes, for sure. So, I obviously would thank you. So I greatly appreciate you having me on. I greatly appreciate you helping me get the word out. So, and this is again humbling for me to be able to even talk about this thing that we're doing. So we greatly appreciate it.
It's huge, bro. Thank you for coming so much. I wish you much success, and
thank you.
Let's see if I can drop a little surprise to the day.
Yes. We would love it. So I'm telling you, any type of fan art or any artwork that people produce from our game world, we are totally on board for that. We would share. So thank you. And then before we kind of wrap this up, again, I want to say, guys, so thank you just for listening to what I'm talking about. And then also to the idea of, could there be guidebooks, lore books, maybe a stretch goal? So in the 3rd tier of our Kickstarter, people can buy a concept art book that will show people kind of like the process of how we made this, but also an exposure to the lore of each individual faction. There'll also be a map that shows where each faction is located, so you can see kind of like where their natural enemies are and what the terrain and the culture of it's like too as well. So that we will have, which is in the current Kickstarter, and that's the 3rd tier. So that 3rd tier includes the the expansion game, which comes with 8 factions and maybe 9 if we hit that stretch goal, but then it comes with the concept art book too. So I would say, yeah, if you could back what we're trying to do, really spread that word and get this idea out of that representation matters, and we're doing it, and we want people to be a part of that conversation and a part of the lore of this game and help build it with us. So yeah, so there's a link in our profile that it is linked to the Kickstarter, and we'd love your backing and support as well.
Hey, you definitely got my support, bro.
Thank you.
Talk to the amazing team at freaking VT Heroes.
Yes.
I'm talking to the amazing freaking Factions Battlegrounds. And
absolutely.
It's crazy to interview the person that's inspired by you.
Yes. So I greatly appreciate this, man. So thank you so much for, again, this is humbling to me, the fact that we can even have the opportunity to be able to talk about this. So yeah, I greatly appreciate it.
Always, bro. Have a blessed freaking day.
Thank you.
Best luck on everything, bro.
Thank you. Same to you. And again, like the fact that you're making art with that same level of representation, we greatly appreciate it. We appreciate someone who gives that voice to others. So same here, man. Absolutely.
Thank you so much, bro. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. All right, man. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Same to you.
All right.
Peace.
All right. Bye. Peace.
Phone's about to